was a All right, and welcome to Defense Diaries. I'm your host, Bob Mata, and I'm joined by my much smarter, much more beautiful co-host, Allie. What's up, girl?
Hey, babe. Hey, y'all.
I like your little pullover there. We're supporting the Countryside Fire Protection District today. Our son, the
This was total
heroic
happenstance.
firefighter. Yeah,
I,
total
I was,
happenstance.
I was like, I'm going to support my hero son today, and then I get on here and I'm like, oh, we're both matching.
I was telling Allie, this is I it's a little chilly in the courtroom, so I wear this like
Mata.
pullover almost every day. So I'm always supporting the guy. Okay, babe. Today
You've
was
been
a
telling
today
me it
was
was a
a
day.
it was a day. It was a day in court. Um, if we're keeping score of, good day for the state, good day for the defense, good day for the state, good day for the defense. Today was a I'm gonna have to put today very firmly in the column of the defense. So I was tweeting because we were told yesterday by McClellan in court that their intent was to call a DNA expert today. So I go in and expecting a DNA expert. I also briefly chatted with Jennifer Auger. She's like, "Yeah, I was up till 2 a.m. prepping for the DNA guy." Surprise, surprise, surprise. The state decided to call Jerry Holeman again. Okay, now I just want to point out the fact that Jerry Holeman and Steve Mullen is a prosecutor, investigator, and Jerry Holeman is a lieutenant with the Indiana State Police, and they are both allowed to sit in the courtroom. For some reason, the state is allowed to have two cops sitting in the courtroom for the entirety of all the testimony that has occurred thus far. And so I'm like, well, wow. I knew they were going to put Holman on again. It's like I talked about this the other night, babe. I don't know if you watched it or if you heard what I was saying, but I mean, essentially what they're doing is that Nick is putting up his cops piecemeal. He's putting them up strategically in a way so that he can limit exactly what he wants his cops to testify to so as to block the defense from being able to get into extended long cross examinations covering all kinds of different areas. And so that's been the strategy all along. So he puts Holman on the stand today, and the questioning starts with Lieutenant Holman. He's like, "We went through all your training experience. We're not going to do that again." He's like, "So you were here in court yesterday for Melissa Oberg's testimony, correct? And she is their firearms expert, right? She's the gal who did the analysis on the firearms." And he says, yeah, he was in here. It was in here. So the next question he asks is, "Well, so after hearing her testimony, sir, do you have a better understanding of what her position is with respect to, what she considers to be, what's the term they use? Sufficient agreement." And he's like, yeah, I do. He's like, that really cleared a lot of stuff up for me. So it comes. So
That
he
cleared a
says,
lot of stuff up for him. Like he
yeah,
doesn't know his case. He's not told the evidence ahead of time.
This
He's not
is
given lab
just let
results?
let me get through this thing, man. It's gonna blow your mind. It's gonna
Alright.
blow your mind. So apparently, at some point in time, Holman was walking around. And you remember yesterday when I told you that Brad had asked the question about comparing uh, a paternity test and the reliability of that to this firearm, this firearm
Nonsense.
examination analysis, right? And so
You mean the
apparently
analysis that said there was no match, in my mind.
they can't use the word match.
I mean, the one that when she just tried to
Now Jerry's been
rifle it.
calling it a match the whole time. So what comes out and I'm trying to figure out immediately after the first question, I'm like, what is Nick McClellan doing with this? So it becomes evident immediately that they have put him on the stand in order to front the fact that the defense is going to be putting on, and it sounds like it's going to be next week. As I told you, I'm like, I think the state's case in chief is done. As far as I'm concerned, all that's really left is whatever going to put this DNA person on, and basically just to say, yeah, these are the things we tested. This is why we didn't test things. This is like that we didn't find his DNA. Whatever. And then it's confessions, and from that, I think their case in chief is done. There is nothing more. There's nothing more. So, but what comes out here is so McClellan asked him. So when you had said to somebody that there was a match and that it was as reliable, that this analysis was as reliable as a paternity test, you misspoke. So Holman was out there telling people, along with other state troopers, which came out, that this test that they had, this match that they had, was as reliable as a paternity test.
Babe, he
So
misspoke.
he's what he said is he said, I misinterpreted the strength of the bullet examination is what he said. He said, but there were a lot of other troopers that believed it too. I mean, I was sitting there watching them walk this shit back, like in a way that I've never seen the state do something like that. Like,
Sounds like they put up their hands like, "Alright, we fucked up, case over."
and then he also like, and then this he said he also misspoke about the bullet potentially belonging to either the Smith and Wesson or a Sig. And then he said, after hearing the testimony, do you have a better understanding of that? And he says, yeah, I do. I have a better understanding about it. So then he says, with your training and experience, and he starts probing into him about a little bit about mental illness and, and in terms of interrogation or interview techniques. And, and you took some training for that. And, you have certain techniques that you use when you're having an interview with a witness or a potential suspect, right? You use these things. He's like, yeah, oh, yeah. It's like, yeah, I was trained for that stuff. I use that stuff. And so then Nick says, in lying to them and overstating evidence, those are some of the things that you can do and you use in your techniques. Those are techniques you use. He says, oh yeah, we do that. He's like, we do things like we read body language. We're doing all kinds of stuff. Like when I'm in there trying to get somebody to confess, I'm observing everything that I can. If they're doing things that I find to be a little bit suspect, if they're the way that they're portraying themselves, their tone, their tenor, all that kind of stuff. And so they talk about there's a couple of interviews that they did with Rick. So they did one on the 13th of October, both voluntary. And then they did another one on the 26th. In the interim, they had taken Rick's car. Okay. So I happened to be sitting right next to Kathy Allen today, who, by the way, Rick's mom, Jan, had a horrible spill. She stepped and fell off of a curb, and she wasn't in court today. They had to bring her to the hospital. She's okay, but like Kathy was really upset. Like apparently her whole face was bleeding. It was like a face plant type situation. So that was,
Ay, ay, ay.
yeah, it was pretty bad. But she's okay. It sounds like. I think that she's gonna be all right. So, and Kathy told me today, she like whispered in my ear, she's like when Rick goes back to the interview that we're going to be talking about, we thought we were going back to pick up our car. That's That was it. It was like we didn't think that they were going to take him into a room and interrogate him for 2 hours. Like we literally thought we were told that we were going to be able to come back and get our car, which they had our car. So they get into the room and he says, look, he's like, and Nick now is being very careful. He's like, and he's like, there's a video of this particular interrogation, right, or this interview, but we have a transcript of it as well, right? And he's like, and you've reviewed the transcript. And he says, yeah, I've reviewed it. He's like, but like, I just want to be clear, like when you're saying things on the stand today, you're not saying things verbatim. Like you're like, if you're saying something that Rick said, it's not exactly, it might not be exactly what he said, right? And he's like, yeah, that's accurate. He's like, I don't have the thing memorized. And then he says, and he said, and at that point, you had Oberg's report, correct? On you had received it at the time of the interview on the 22nd, right? And he's like, yeah, I had it. And he said, and in fact, you told Richard Allen that you had a match with the bullet and his gun, right? And he says, yeah, we told him that we had a match. And you know, and he says, and we also had taken his car. And he said, Nick says, okay, well, was Richard Allen at the time of the second interview, was he under arrest? He's like, no, he wasn't under arrest. Like the amount of misconduct that takes place in this interview is insane. It's insane. And look, I mean, cops can lie in interrogations. I tell people that all the time, all the time. I say, you know, when like people are like, oh yeah, I believe cops more than I believe anyone. I'm like, you realize that cops are literally trained to lie. They are trained to lie. They are trained to try to extract information out of people. And the Supreme Court of the United States it says that they, you know, to a certain extent, they can lie about things. They can't promise things. Okay, they can't make promises like if you tell me what's going on, you know, we're going to set you free. They can't do shit like that. They can overstate evidence. They can lie about evidence they have. They can say, "Oh yeah, your partner over in the other room, yeah, he just ratted you out, dude. He said that you were there, you did it." You know, it's like so they can do all those types of things. They are trained liars and they do it all the time. Like let's just have like a real perception of what cops are allowed to do and what they do, okay? Because they lie all the time. So he says, you had Oberg's report. He says, yeah, I had it. And then, and again, he's like, you like, Allen wasn't under arrest at that point. He wasn't in handcuffs, correct? No, he wasn't. And so he was free to leave that at any time. And he's like, okay. He's like, yeah, he was free to leave. And he's like, did you read him his Miranda rights? He's like, no, he's like, I didn't, but like I reminded him of his rights. You know, I told him what they were, but I wouldn't consider it to be like an official reading. I didn't have him sign a waiver or anything like that. I just told him what his rights were. And he says, yeah. And he's like, oh, so you brought him in, and then you brought him into a interview room, correct? And he's like, and the door wasn't locked, right? He's like, no, it wasn't locked, and he was free to leave, correct? Yeah, he says, yeah, he was free to leave. And then and so how did that conversation go? He's like, well, I started, talking about with the search on the house, which we had just done a few days earlier, and during the search of the house, because this is on the 26th, and I believe that the search took place on the 22nd. So they'd taken the car and they had searched the home on the 22nd of October. I believe I was trying to write as fast as I could. So don't quote me exactly on dates, but I'm pretty sure that this is the 16th, or I'm sorry, the 26th of October. All right. So he's like, it was the same kind of things that I had talked about him, like when he said that thing, like, it doesn't matter, it's over. When I was sitting in the car with them the other day when we were searching his house, and he's like, whatever, man, like, and he's like, so like, how would you describe Rick's demeanor initially? He's like, I mean, he was in there, asked about getting his car back, and was wondering like what's going on. And then he says, at that point, he said, all right, wait, let me read this. I want to get this. Okay. Okay. So, at this point, I wanted to remember because more than reading, I want to kind of like try to like reenact it. So like Holman's up there and he says, "All right, so look, like like how do you start the conversation?" Well, he's like, "Yeah, and I started talking about like kind of like the military a little bit. I mean, Rick was in the army and I was in the military and Nick says, "Well, why do you do that kind of thing?" He's like, "Well, I'm trying to build rapport. I'm trying to build rapport with them." Um and then, and then casually you kind of ask him, you shift into the, talking about the gun, right? And you say, "Well, what do you ask him?" "Oh, I said, like, like how often do you go out shooting?" He's like, "You shoot every day?" He's like, "Nah, he's like, I shoot occasionally here and there." And he's like, "Okay, well, like how often do you think you shot that gun of yours that we took?" He's like, "I don't know, on and off on occasion." He's like, I don't know how often I shoot it." It's like, but it's not daily, right? And he says that, so then he says, "Okay, all right, that's interesting." He's like, "Let me ask you, have you ever, like, you ever loaned your car out to anybody?" And Rick's like, "Nah, I've never loaned my car out to anybody." And mind you, just so you guys understand that we are going, and I said it early, but if you're getting late, we are going to be hearing this entire interview in court next week. Now, I've seen it somewhere online. Like, this interview was out there somewhere because I remember, or I've heard it. I don't know if somebody got their hands on it, but I remember hearing what Rick sounded like during this interview, that he was adamant, like, just like, and I can't remember, like, I don't think I visually saw it. I think that somebody had the sound of it
I
somewhere.
think that you're remembering, like, when they, like, described it said the words in detail, and you're, like, forming a memory. Because 'cause I'm having that issue with, like, reading your notes and being in trial and then being like, "I've heard this before."
Oh,
So
maybe, yeah, maybe somebody reenacted it, like, that's what DB was saying, like, maybe that's what I heard. Maybe I even read part of that thing. I don't know. Um, all right, so, so he's asking him, "Yeah, have you ever loaned out your car?" "No." Well, he's like, "What about, like, your articles of clothes? Like, do you ever loan out your clothes, like your jacket?" He's like, and then he's always trying to be relatable. He's like, it's like sometimes my son, he'll loan out his car to a buddy of his, or it's like, some like a buddy of his comes over and he's like, "Ah, it's gonna be cold out. You should wear a jacket." Yeah, you ever do that kind of thing? Rick's like, "No." He's like, "Well, what about your gun? Have you ever loaned your gun out to anybody?" And he's like, "No, no, never loaned my gun." And he's like, because like sometimes, like, if my son's like a little low on money and he's like, "Yeah, dad, I could use a five, like a few $100, $500." He's like, "Maybe, like, could you hold my, like, can I pawn it to you? Basically, I'm going to give you my gun. You give me the $500. And then, if I pay you back, then I'll get my gun back." He's like, "Yeah, you ever do anything like that?" It's like, "Nah, man, I've never done anything like that." So he's
I mean,
like,
he thinks people are so stupid that if he's the real killer, he can't see that coming to say, "Sure, sometimes I loan my gun out. Sure, sometimes I loan my car out."
"Right. Yeah, I loaned my car out on the 17th or the 13th of February of 2017. Yeah. So like some dude named Elvis Fields was driving my car around that day. You should look into that guy." So he says, uh, and then he says, "Have you oh, and then he asked him if he had his gun with him on the 13th. Okay. He's like, "Hey man, did you happen to be carrying your gun on the 13th?" And Rick's like, "Nah, man." It's like, I like, the only time I carry my gun is if, I'm fishing, or and I need it and I'm out kind of in the wild, or if I'm out like mushroom hunting, because those feral hogs, bro, they'll come at you. Those, it's like those, it's the only time." He's like, and so how do you
Richard Allen sounds really cool when you make his voice, babe.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so when he's like, "Yeah, no, I don't carry it on a daily basis." He's like, "And how do you carry it typically?" He's like, I've got a hip holster. I carry it on my hip, or a side holster." He's like, "Okay." And he's like, "So what about, like, how do you carry your ammunition?" He's like, typically, like, I have like a magazine loaded in the gun, and like maybe I'll have an extra one in my pocket, if I like, but typically it's just It's just loaded, with a magazine. So he says, he's like, he's like, I have to tell you, Rick. He's like, and this is the first time Alan hears of this. He's like, we found a bullet out at the scene by the girls, probably about, like 6 inches, from between the girls, and he's like, oh, yeah. And then he's like, is that, and that bullet, Rick, it matches your gun. And then Rick's like, the fuck it does. He says that there's no way that bullet matches my gun. There's no fucking way that bullet matches my gun. And at this point, remember, they've already searched his house. They've already like locked down his neighborhood. They've already done, like he knows what they're doing. So he says, so then he says the thing and then Holman asks him, he says, so, what did you mean the other day when you said it doesn't matter, it's over? And he says, oh, he's like, what are you talking about, man? He's like, the damage is done. It's like you came over and you like interviewed my neighbors and you interviewed my coworkers. You're telling them I'm a killer. It's like you ruined my life. You ruined my life. That's what I meant. And so this is like I said, a few days later. And then he says, let me see. God damn it. See, I was really trying to write fast. So, and I knew Allie wasn't reading. So my shit is sloppy as hell today. Let me see.
I had to help your dad. Did I miss something huge?
No, he had his explanation. So Holman asked him he asked him, he's like, well, why did you say that thing to me? It doesn't matter. It's over the other day. And Rick's like, well, the damage was done. You had done the damage. You interviewed my neighbors. You interviewed my coworkers. You ruined my fucking life.
This is the state's putting all this evidence on?
State put this shit on, dude. I could not believe it. I was sitting here. I went up to Andrea. I'm like, can you believe what we just saw?
I think that they realized that.
She's like, my jaw's on the floor. I'm like, dude, I can't believe what we just saw in here today. What a Saturday.
They're realizing that we're gonna get slapped in the face for misleading the jury.
Dude, well, they know, the state knows they're playing, that they're going to get to play this interview. They're going to get to play it. And so, that's the only thing I can think is that they were trying to get in front of it. That they were trying to lay some groundwork. All right, well, this kind of explains why I was fucking lying to him about all kinds of shit. And, just kind of said, like cops are allowed to lie. So we do it. We're trying to I'm trying to find a killer of 2 young girls.
Every little thing, every little hint of guilt has been completely on either cross-examination or in the next breath.
Oh yeah.
Obliterated.
I don't care who reports what. I'm I'm giving you, this is exactly how this shit went down. This is exactly how this shit went down. And I know everybody thinks I'm a shill for the defense. I'm not a shill for the defense. I promise you, I'm not on their payroll. I'm just a big due process, fair trial guy. And I am definitely supporting Kathy Allen. And today was a big day for the defense in this case. And it's I was watching this jury and they were just because I was on the side closest to the jurors. And so McClellan asked, did you ever, did you continue to confront him with the evidence? He says, yes, I did. He's like, I lied to him. I was saying that, that we had the video from Libby's phone, and that we had an expert that had come and they were able to match that it's your voice on that video. and Rick's like, yeah, the fuck you did. I guarantee you, you didn't match shit, because that's not my voice on the video. Now, he didn't say that, but
he's not saying it like Bob, but
he might be.
It's the gist.
No, it's we're gonna hear it.
Okay.
And he's adamant. Rick is not sitting there cowering and go, no, it's not me, man. He's like, no, man. He's like everything you're saying is bullshit. He's like, So he says, and then he's like, how do you, he's like, how do you, and he's like, so, we've got this video and now we have witnesses that have said that it was you. Not that they saw a guy. He says, he's like, we have eyewitnesses that say it was you. They've identified you. And then McClellan says, so what does he do? He says he continues to deny it. He denies that he has anything to do with the killing of the girls. And then he says, well, what about the bullet? He says that there's no way it's his bullet at the scene. There's no way that it's his bullet. It's impossible. So he says, did you ask him if he committed the crime? He said, yes, I did. And then he said he denied it. He denied it. And then McClellan asks him, during the course of the 2 hours, how many times do you say he denied that he killed the girls? He said, I don't know, like 20, 25 times. Did you say that, did you ask him if he had ever been hunting or mushroom hunting out there by the bridge? I said, yeah, I did. He said he hadn't been doing that out there. It's not where he goes for it. Yeah, you're not going to hunt the trails. It's not what you do out there. Did you ever ask him about his mental health? And he said, yeah, I did ask him about that. And he said, yeah, that he's, in the past, he suffered from depression. And he said, well, McClellan asked, did you see any kind of evidence of that? Did you see signs of it? He said, no, I didn't really see any signs of it.
What? No objection?
Nah, man, like
Oh my
the
lord.
defense was just letting him run with this shit. There was no objecting to that. This was like
They were
like,
too
why
like
what are you objecting on? Like,
well, how his ability to determine whether he saw any
all
signs
of
of
it's
depression.
ridiculous. No,
Right.
like they just let Holeman testify. I would have done the exact same thing. I'm not objecting to a goddamn thing. Let this guy just keep talking. This is like glorious. If you're a defense, you're thinking this is unbelievable. Like they had no idea this was coming. Like, no, they literally thought it was going to be the DNA expert. So he said, I asked him if he had ever shot his gun out there, like out in the trails. He's like, no, I've never done that. Never shot my gun out there.
Again,
Um,
he's a criminal that saved a bullet in his hope chest because that bullet has something to do with what happened at that scene. Would he not see that coming and say, sure, I shot my gun out there a ton of times?
yeah. Oh my God, I forgot. So rewind a little bit. Because I just want to keep talking about the misconduct that occurred during this interview. So I forgot a big part of it. So like Baldwin, I just want to say it now because Baldwin brings it up in cross. Actually, I'll just wait till the cross. So
Oh,
that's
Lord,
what
got us
he
all
says about
worked
the
up
interview.
and then, jeez,
No, it's all about whether or not they recorded the
wait
portion of
for
the
it.
interview when Holman allegedly is refreshing Rick's refreshing him as to his Miranda rights. Okay. So that's just a teaser because we know that this video is recorded and somehow that portion where he says it, uh, somehow didn't make it onto the video. It's like this is that case where we know that in the first 3 days they lost all the interviews of all the people that they've that they interviewed in the critical first 48, 72 hours. They lost all the video. It all vanished into thin air because technical difficulties. So then he says, all right. So he's like, at some point, does he continue to deny that he's involved? And he says, yeah, he does. He does. He continues to deny that he's involved. And then he says, well, like, what did he say exactly? And then he says that Rick, and he says, I'm paraphrasing. He's like, I'm not going to tell you that I did something that I didn't do. He's like, I don't give a shit what you do to me. He's like, I am never going to say that I did something that I did not do. Like, and that's like, he's like, I don't. So he says, okay.
So this is them trying to prove the confessions are true,
Well, it's them trying to lay a groundwork, maybe.
I guess.
Yeah. I think what it's going to really, because when we actually see the video and they see how adamant he is and how he's acting
They're
in
gonna
that
believe it.
video, and then they see how they've destroyed him psychologically in that 4 months. Like,
It's gonna backfire if that was their plan,
if
I
that was
agree.
their plan, I don't know how they see that that's going to work. And then he says, Nick asked him, so the conversation had got heated at that point. Yeah. He's like, yeah, he was definitely irritated. Um, he said, I didn't
Rightfully so.
no shit. He said, I didn't fucking do it. He said, that's what he kept saying. He said, I didn't fucking do this. And then Holman says, he's like, so, he's like, I have a technique, so when he's like, in the beginning that we weren't really cussing. And then when Rick started to cuss, I have a technique of trying to kind of match the way that they're speaking and acting. I'll try to mirror them. So he's like, so I started cussing at that point. So we're effing this and we're effing that back and forth. And he said, did you continue to ask him about the gun and the bullet? Yes. Yeah, I did. Like, and Nick asked him that question like 10 times. Like, did you ask him about it? Like, he's, yeah, I kept asking him about the gun and the bullet. He kept denying it. And he kept saying, I have no idea how that bullet got there. None. Zero idea how it got there. And then he says that you confronted Rick Allen with the info from Oberg, right? And he said it was your belief that the round um, had cycled through the gun and that it was a match, correct? And he says, yeah. He's like, yeah, I said that. And he said, Rick, and this is in quotes, he says, Rick said that, there's no way that round cycled through my gun. There's no way that round cycled through my gun. And he's like, well, how did it get there, Rick? How did it get there? If it didn't cycle through your gun and it's a match to your gun, how did it get there? He says, I have no explanation for how it got there. I don't know. I could not begin to tell you how it got there.
Wow.
And he says that and he said that and you asked him if he was out on the trails and the bridge that day. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I already told you I was out there. And I told you what I was wearing. He's like, I was out there that day. And then he's like, at that point, like Rick asked to go like have a smoke break. So like he goes out and he has a smoke break. And then at that point, Kathy had asked, or he had asked if Kathy could come into the room because Kathy was there. Remember, they're there to go thinking they're going to pick up their car. Okay. So he says at that point, we allowed Kathy into the room with them. Um, and Nick says, did you observe that? He's like, were you in the room with them? He's like, nah, I mean, a little bit initially, but then I went out. And he's like, did you observe that conversation? He's like, yeah, we were all observing the conversation from outside the room. And then he's like, did Rick say anything? And he says, well, he said, look, he told Kathy, he's like, like if they've got you in custody, he's like, just like go get a lawyer. They have to set you free. They have to let you go. Say just you're gonna go get a lawyer and they're gonna let you go. And then he says, and then he asked him again, he's like, so how do you carry your gun? And he's like, I told you, man, it's a side holster, with one in the chamber. That's what he says, that Rick says. And he says, okay, and he says he gives me no indication that he murdered the girls. Okay. And that he gives me no indication that he knew the girls. Gives me no indication that he has his gun out there, or how his round got out there. And then Baldwin objects. He's like, he needs to quit saying that it's his round. I mean, they have an expert who it's her opinion that it's a match, but he needs to quit saying it in front of the jury as if it's a fact. It's a fact in dispute, is what it is. So then he comes in, clears that up. And then he says, and then Nick asks him, he's like, so have you ever been trained to detect deception? And he says, well, he's like, yeah. He's like, well, look, part of what you're taught is that you pick up cues. There's certain cues that we're taught to look for in order to indicate if somebody's lying or being deceptive. And then Baldwin says, Your Honor, I'd like to ask, because in like factually, like Holeman just doesn't know, like, it doesn't appear to know a ton about, like, times, dates, witnesses, things like that. It was crazy. So, like, Baldwin's like, I need to ask, Your Honor, may I ask a couple preliminary questions? And, like, I think I've told you guys that they allow this in Indiana. It's basically like a voir dire. So they'll say, like, if he asks a question and, like, before just objecting, they allow it out here where you can voir dire the witness to see if they actually have the knowledge base to be able to specifically, whether it's personal knowledge or if it's something relating to an expertise as to whether or not they have the ability to be able to testify about that thing. So, like Andy says, Your Honor, I've got a question. He says, go ahead. He's like, so the Reed theory. He's like, so when did you take that training? So he starts grilling him on the Reed, kind of the Reed interrogation training, which is like if you do any kind of like research out there, you'll know that that's like a technique that a ton of law enforcement, and it's really nefarious shit. Like this Reed technique shit is like, he's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know, but like, I'm not really sure when I took the training, but it was sometime. And he's like, I don't even know if it was the Reed thing, but it was some kind of like, I got some kind of training on it. So like Baldwin was like, okay, whatever. So, he's like, "Okay, so, like, what are some of the things that they teach you?" He's like, "Well, it's like their posture, if they're looking down, if they touch their face a lot, like, those kind of things, like body language type stuff. Like, those are good indicators that somebody may be, being deceptive." And then he's like, like, he's like, but, like Andy had asked him that. So like, okay, well, tell me, like, what? So who told you this? Like, who trained you? Who's the person who trained you? Do you know who trained you? It's like, nah, I have no idea. Some dude, like some guy. He's like, signs of deception. If they keep touching their face and they're not making eye contact and they're looking down, uh, like stuff like that. And then so Baldwin's like, fine. And then so McClellan comes up and he asks the question of, yeah, like, and I think it wait, I wanna make sure that I wrote the note because like, it's like like Holman says, he's like, but I'm no expert. He's like, I like took a little course, it's like I'm not a human lie detector or anything like that. So McClellan asked him, so, did you observe any signs of deception with Rick Allen? And no objection. They laid this out that like he's clearly not trained on this, and they can't remember when he trained, what program, who trained him, none of that stuff. He's like, well, he's like, yeah. He says, and this is verbatim. He says, a few. I saw a few. They were very minor, very subtle signs of deception,
Very
and then
subtle.
very
You
subtle.
guys might miss it if you blink. I mean, don't blink.
Right. So then, and then Nick says, and not every cue, uh, that somebody does, like, if somebody I touch my face all the time, like, it's just I just do, like, I'm always like,
How's touching your hair? Is that a big sign of deception?
"Oh, yeah, you lying like a mofo, Captain Hair Toucher." So she says that, not he's like, "So not every one of these cues, really means that they're, like, automatically being deceptive." He's like, "Right." So he says that, so he kinda goes through that, and he says that, Rick touched his face a few times, that he was looking down some. And he says, "Okay." And then he says, "All right." And he says, "And there was some point during the interview where you say this thing where," he says, like, look, man, it's like, yeah, like we we think that you're a good person, man. Like we don't like we don't think you're a good person." And he says, "And what did Rick say?" And then like this is that thing that they're trying to twist. We talked about this at some point where he says, "Oh yeah, well what kind of good person would kill two girls?" You got me. So meaning not like they like that's not any kind of that's saying, okay, you're sitting here talking out both sides of your fucking mouth, saying that you think that I'm a good guy, but you're in here accusing me of killing two girls. That's what that means. Nothing else. Nothing else. I cannot wait. I wish that this thing was being streamed to the world
They'd be
so,
outraged. Just outraged.
so, so much.
I mean, I wonder if the judge is starting to doubt herself. I see no signs of it. I see no signs of it. But, I mean, are we
I'm gonna
watching?
tell you, I told you, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but, like,
No.
she gave Baldwin a lot of leeway on his cross, which, like, I don't know if they're working her a little bit, like, I don't know if she's wearing down a little bit, but she gave him a lot more leeway than she typically would give Baldwin.
Well, were they objecting and she was overruling them? Or they weren't
She
objecting?
overruled on one that surprised the hell out of me based on her pattern.
Prior.
Yeah. So then Baldwin, or I'm sorry, McClellan says so at that point you're at the end of your interview, right? You know, you're talking about the interview. And like I don't know if this part's on tape. And he's like, "Does Rick say anything to you?" He's like, yeah, he said something. He said, "You know what? Take all your fucking evidence and arrest me then. Let's see what you got." Because I didn't do you know what I mean? It's like he was
Right.
very Rick was adamant that he didn't do this thing. So he says, and at that point, we detained him. And this is a quote. This is a quote. He said that we felt that we had enough evidence. And this is after he's already said that they're lying about witnesses pointing out Rick and that he lied that they had somebody like some expert to match his voice to bridge guy and that he doesn't like at that point he clearly had a misunderstanding of what the agreement the sufficient agreement on the bullet and the gun was. He's like, we felt it at that point that we had enough evidence to establish probable cause, and that's it. So what that tells you, what I've been telling you guys on repeat, is that at this point in time, they were convinced that they were going to find more evidence post arrest. Okay. His like Holman's exact statement is, well, we felt like that we had enough evidence to establish probable cause. Not that we nailed him. We got him. Like we knew we had the guy. Nothing like and this is all in front of a jury. It's like it's like the whole thing stunned me. Like the whole thing was like, I'm like, I can't believe what I'm like. And I had the partners, the what's their faces sitting right behind Kathy and I, like leaning in, like when Kathy was trying to whisper. Like there's one thing that I have to tell you. And it's the people that I do not name, who like to try to cast shade on me all the time, who are the most sleaziest people that I've ever seen in my life. So like at the end of this hearing, and this is just an aside, Rick had sent a note over to Kathy, and like I see what's his face, like he's like leaning forward, like trying to read this private note that Rick sent to Kathy, and I'm like, I turn around, I'm like, I'm like, Kathy, like this guy's like literally trying to creep over and read this note that your husband just sent you. Those two, man, at some point, I haven't seen. No, it wasn't him. No, it was the other two who always talk shit about me. I know that dude does too, but the two that are so upset that I have the two that claim that I'm a shill for the defense, those two, like that said it all. Like that was like, I mean, like literally, it was something else. I literally like it was, all right. So at that point they detain him. Then we get the cross examination. So Baldwin's doing it. Comes in hot, just firing. He's like, "Oh, so he's like, I was watching you when you were testifying on the stand. Uh, he's like, you happened to look down quite a bit when you were testifying. Were you lying?"
Who said
No,
that?
Andy, that was the first question that he asked Holman. He's like, I noticed during your testimony that you were looking down quite a bit. Were you lying? He's like, it doesn't always mean deception. Uh, it was great. It was a great start.
Did you get a
Um,
chance to look at the jury at all, see how they were responding to this stuff?
I'm all like, that's what I was saying. I was sitting over jury side. So yeah, I was looking at the jury a lot. This jury,
And
stone faced,
mm,
like just like, but super attentive, like super attentive. Um, I mean, like what are you hoping they're going to be like laughing and like? I mean,
no,
they're
like or like writing.
no, they're a good jury. They're like they're stone. They're doing what exactly. They're not tipping their hand at all in terms of what they're thinking about anything. I thought that the only time that I kind of I thought I got a vibe, and I could completely be misreading it, is yesterday during the firearms expert, and when Brad was trying to get the pictures in, the big pictures that actually show like what she's claiming is a match, like the thing that you expect, like every juror is going to expect to see. So, oh wait, you're not going to really show us the pictures of the match? Like, I don't understand what's happening here. And like when they were just fighting Brad, and I'm talking about the state and the judge, really, in terms of him being able to show it. I think I saw one of the jurors, a female juror in the third row, kind of like shake her head. It's
Mm.
like because that whole thing did not play well for the state in terms of it was like it really felt like they were trying to hide the ball. It's like okay, if you feel this is powerful evidence, then like explain that. Look, you can't like you're not trained to do what I do. You're going to look at these photographs, but just understand that there's a lot more to it. But go ahead, look at it. We feel that the thing speaks for itself. I think that you're going to find yourself that it's going to line up. But and if you don't, just understand that there's other things. I mean, just explain it. And they did like they didn't take that approach, which was really weird. So uh so he says like he's like, hey man, so you're like real nice and calm guy on the stand here. It's like you're real nice, laid back. He's like, that's not the man that Rick Allen saw that day in that room, is it? Like he's like, no, he's like, yes, it was. He's like, oh, and so he's like, oh, well, the people are going to see
The
the video.
video. Right.
So he says that you claim that you told Richard Allen that he was free to leave and that you had, refreshed his recollection on what the Miranda rights are. But he says, but oddly, it's not in that video. And then like Holeman literally was like, look at technical difficulty. He's like,
No, shut up.
yeah. He's like, but wait. He's like, so he's like, I went out and I got it started, and you like there's like the three dots, and like it's the video should be running, and like, but when I went in, the three dots were showing on the thing, and he's like, so I just thought it was running, and he's like, but apparently there's some kind of delay. So Baldwin's like, all right, so let me get this clear. So then you go out there, you hit the record button on a digital
Stop tapping
recorder.
on the table. We're here. Tap, 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 tap.
Oh, well, that was me talking about
I
him
know, like the
hitting
way
the
he's
hitting the
saying it.
record.
Yeah, I
No,
get it.
hitting the record button.
Oh,
I was reenacting it for you. So he says that he goes out there he says, so what you're saying to me is after you hit record on a digital recorder that somehow, in some mysterious way, there was a delay before it started recording.
just to cover the Miranda warnings.
Right.
Not
Well,
even the end of it.
I mean, and he says, and he's like, because you understand that constitutionally speaking, and this is Andy, that if you had not given him some kind of Miranda warning, not advise him of his rights at all, that there would be a potential constitutionality issue with this interview, right? He's like, oh yeah, I know, yeah, no,
Oh,
I know, yeah,
oh,
that's like, yeah, oh, yeah. Something close to that. I definitely
oh, I
exaggerate.
miss you. Get home.
I know. Soon, baby, soon, baby. Um, so he's like, and then Andy goes into it. He dips into it. He's like, there's actually a lot of losing of videos in this case, isn't there? You remember back in February 17th of 2013, and like Nick stands up, objection, beyond the scope. She
No,
she
she can.
sustained she
Uh,
sustained it
I
there.
know, but I just want to say for the record, our little record here, that you can impeach someone with anyone. You can show bias with anyone. He just said technical difficulties when I pressed the button. It's not outside of the scope. You get to impeach him with anything inside or outside of the scope.
True story. True story. Listen to my girl, she
Oh,
knows. Um, so then he talks about the couple of dates of the interviews. He's like, so,
and keep his
and
credibility, that is, everyone,
at
sorry,
that
not
point, Andy goes up and he seeks to get both of the recorded interviews. Now, I wrote the dates, but I know they're wrong. The first one's wrong. I think it's 10/13. Probably one of the girls in chat knows when it is. So I believe that it was a 10/13 interview and then the 10/26 interviews. Those are admitted into evidence, and we shall be watching those. That more importantly, the jury shall be watching them next week, some point. Um, and he says, so we can he's like, so in terms of his demeanor, we'll be able to hear his demeanor talking about Rick. Um, okay, so he says on direct examination, you talked about lying, that there were witnesses that saw him on the trail that identified him, and that you had some kind of expert that recognized his voice and made a match. And yet, he still denied it, right? Like, even though you're telling him you got him dead to rights, he still denied it. He's like, yeah, yeah. And you also said something about not lying to him. And Holman's like, no, no, I didn't do it. He's like, as a matter of fact, what you said, and I want to quote you on it, is you said, I'm not lying, Rick. That would be unethical. Holman's like, no, no, I don't remember saying that. He's like, that doesn't sound like something I'd say. And then he's like, well, do you want me to give you the transcript? And Holman's like, no. I mean, if you're saying I said it, then okay. He's like, because I can refresh it. Like, I can have you look at it in the transcript. And Holman's like, no, that's okay. So, and he also said something to him to the effect that he's like, the prosecutors on this case, they want to lock you up and throw away the key, Rick. You got to help me help you, brother.
help me help you.
Help me help you. You are my ambassador of Quan. That's what Rick then said to Holman. That did not happen. Okay, he said, and then he says, he's like, so I gotta tell you, Rick, the death penalty's on the table on this case, man. And he says something to the effect, he's like, so, and he's yelling these things. He's like, so this is what you're gonna do? You're gonna drag your fucking wife and daughter into this because you're being too hard-headed, too bullheaded to just admit to what you did. That's what you're gonna do. You're gonna drag Kathy and your daughter into this shit because you're being too bullheaded. So he says, yeah, I was just trying to elicit response. I was just, it's like I was just working. I was just trying to get him to spill. Just tell me. Tell me, buddy. I'm your friend. Just tell me you did it. You did it, didn't you? All right. So, okay. So at that point, Andy asked him, so at some point in between these two interviews, you learn about the information from Oberg, correct? Oberg again being the firearms examiner. He's like, and with respect to that, he's like, you guys decided that you did not want to send this out to an independent lab to have her work checked, right? I mean, like, you guys just like use your state lab over there, the Indiana State Police lab, and like you didn't think it was worth like double checking. Just get an independent lab. Be like, shit. Okay, yeah, you can say we're biased, but like, you can't say this lab's biased, but you didn't want to do that, right? Like, you decided not to do. He's like, yeah, we didn't do that. And he says, and I think he said, he's like, yeah, but this October 26th interview that was recorded. He's like, yeah, I think so. And he says, so, and he changes course a little bit. He says, so Betsy Blair, you find her to be a credible witness? Yes. It's like, oh yeah. It's like, yeah, she's a credible witness. And he says, but like, and you have this timeline of yours, and you got Rick's car driving by, and your theory, he's driving by the Hoosier Harvest store, and it's his little black Ford Focus. He's like, but did did you know that Betsy Blair described a car? He's like, what do you mean? Like, he's like, yeah. He's like, do you know that she described a 1965 Nick objects? He's like, beyond the scope. He's like getting into shit. Like, I wasn't talking about any of this stuff. She sustains it. And he says,
Again,
well,
it
isn't it
shows
your
bias, impeaches credibility.
so this is where it blew my mind. Okay, so like ready to get rid if you follow this case at all, if you know anything about this case at all, you know that it has always been the theory of the state, starting with Tony Liggett's affidavit, wherein that they have Rick Allen parked in the old CPS building. They went so far as to correct him. No, Rick, that's not the old Farm Bureau. You mean the old CPS building. That's where you parked. That's where you're parked. So that's always been their theory. So Andy says, so it's always been your theory that Rick was parked in the old CPS building. He's like, that's not my theory. And like Baldwin's like, he's like, what? He's like, that's not my theory. He's like, but we have a bunch of witnesses to describe a bunch of vehicles. Like, I never said jack shit about where I thought he was parked. Now remember, this is the reason I was talking about Jerry Holeman has been allowed to sit through the entirety of this trial. He has heard all of the evidence come in. What it appears that the state is going to do is they're going to try to backtrack. They are going to sit. So now we know how they're handling Betsy Blair saying that Rick's car was out of the CPS parking lot by 2:14. They're going to say that that's not where he parked.
I am so confused right now. I am just baffled. Like they just was it yesterday said he pulled in backwards. So, and I took note of that, you know,
Yeah.
like, but remember in the opening, the defense said, please remember what the state has said to you. Hold them to what they have told you because at some point it will have to change. They are going to change their story right in front of your eyes.
Yep.
And they did.
They did. It's happening right
And
now.
I feel like there should be another motion for a freaking mistrial.
I mean, they haven't, what do you mean another? They haven't made one since we
Well,
started.
they should have made one when the ME got on and changed his story about the box cutter.
Yeah, for sure. The box cutter shit was crazy. All right. So then Andy keeps asking questions. So the Hoosier Harvest video. He's like, did you watch that? I don't know if I watched it. He's like, all right, so the bridge, how high? Like he's like, and he asked him multiple times, like, you're the lead investigator of this case, right? Because like Holman doesn't know like a bot, like like I'm not picking on the dude. The guy just doesn't know shit about the case in terms of like one of the intimate details. It seems like to me, So he's like the bridge. How high is the bridge? He's like, I don't know. It's like 100 feet. He's like, I don't know. It's high. He's like, well, it's not like a 10 or 15-foot bridge, right? He's like, no. He's like, I don't know, like 100 feet. I think it's like in the 60 foot range, 62, 63, maybe something like that. Definitely wasn't 100 feet. I was standing there and it's certainly not 100 feet. That would, so, so Andy says, so, but according to law enforcement, it's your belief that Rick Allen never left the scene and came back, correct? Like that is like you absolutely are in stone that there is not one of you believes that Rick Allen left that scene and then came back to the scene at some point. And Holman says correct. And then he says at 3:57 p.m. That is when law enforcement believes at that point that the crime was completed. And Holman's kind of like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, you've got Sarah Carbaugh, who's saying that she sees a bloody and muddy man walking on 30 north or 300 north, right? I mean, so like it, like, and she has testified that the person she saw is bridge guy, right? Says, yeah, yeah, um, yeah. So he then says, uh, law enforcement also does not believe that Richard Allen took Libby's phone, correct? And he says, correct. And isn't it also true that Richard Allen never sold his car, right? Continued to work at CVS, continued to go out and eat in the community and go out with his wife to the bars, and he didn't get rid of the gun, right? I mean, you're claiming that you've got some kind of sufficient agreement between his gun and this, but he didn't get rid of the gun, you know? Um, he didn't get rid of any of the clothes. He still got the jacket, right? He's got all that stuff. He's got all that stuff, correct? And then he says, yeah, he's still got all that stuff. I mean, like the counter argument to the gun thing is always going to be he didn't realize he dropped the round. Like
but
he
he
didn't think
saved
there.
one.
Right, right. That's where that thing fucks up for them. So he didn't use the weapon in the commission of the crime. And if their theory is, if they're going to try to say, well, he didn't sell the gun because he didn't realize he dropped the round, then how does that work when you're thinking about, oh, he kept his keepsake of this horrific crime is that he kept a bullet that he didn't realize that he dropped in his memory box.
So what I'm waiting to hear is when they asked him, "Why did you keep this bullet in your memory box?" Because I'm starting to think they freaking planted the thing.
I mean,
I mean, if they didn't, they would have had to ask.
wait, so are you of the impression that Rick's going to testify?
No, what I'm saying is, let's say they found it in his memory box, right? During all this questioning, have you ever lent anybody your weapon? Have you ever lent anybody your car? Why did you save this bullet? And if they never ask that question, if they never ask that question, then I think you're gonna be hard pressed to at least convince me they didn't plant it, because his answer would have been like, you know,
Wait, who are they going to ask about the bullet?
while they were I'm talking about the police while they were interrogating him.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Sorry,
Yeah,
guys. I
right.
guess I didn't make that clear. Like,
No,
maybe,
like you
and if they
did. Like I must have been spacing out because all the people are like, "Oh my god, Allie, yes, yes, Allie." So
and
you
if they
definitely
did, I guess we'll hear what his answer was, but if they didn't,
it's a fuck up if they didn't. Okay, so he says, all right, so you would agree that Libby's phone in terms of this case is going to give us a good timeline of events, right?" Said yes. And he said you would also agree that the data on her phone is reliable, right? He says yes. And he says, so as you sit here today, you still think only one person did this? And he says, I do now. Cause like, I mean, they're all on record back in the day saying that they thought that more than one
I
person did
do
this shit.
now.
They've all they backtrack it. That was
Okay,
his
so what
exact
made you
answer.
change
I
your
do
mind?
now. I do now. So he says that all right. Okay, so and he's like, but he's like, so we all know that Libby apparently was stabbed near the tree, right? And that, but her body's not ultimately found by the tree, right? He's like, yeah, that's correct. He's like, so that would mean that she was dragged over there, right? And he's like, but there's no drag marks. And Holman's like, oh, what? No, he's like, there's drag marks. He's like, they're faint, but they're drag marks. And he's like, and like Andy's bigger point is like it really would have been easier for two people to carry Libby over there, right?
I mean, he's a short guy. I mean,
He's
I don't know.
5'4". He's a little, I mean,
Dragging dead weight, literally, I mean, it's like I got chills just saying that,
I
but
know. I know. So he then asks, like, Andy just crushed this cross. Like he got in so much shit that like I just didn't think that she was gonna allow him to get into. So he says, you actually he said, you guys had the opportunity to try to have the height of bridge guy evaluated, correct?
mm,
Like by an expert. And he's like, yeah, we did. And then he said the cost, and I didn't catch it. It was like it was either 2 grand or 10 grand. It was like whatever it was, they got 4 million fucking bucks. They could afford it. So he said, but it wasn't the cost. It was the fact that there was a height variance that they were telling us. There was a 2 inch height variance. And so we decided that we didn't want to do it. And Andy was like, "Well, I mean, yeah, it's like, I mean, if like, they had him at 5'8", that could be like, 5'10" or 5'6". He's like, you didn't think that was worthwhile? You didn't think that was something that you should probably do? I mean, it's like that question alone was so powerful just because you should be using everything in your power in order to try to figure as much out about the evidence that you do have, good, bad, or indifferent, because we're not here in this country trying to railroad motherfuckers. Like, this is supposed to be about the search for the truth, not like we're afraid to get an answer that's not going to fit with our case. That ain't it. That's not what this thing is about, people. It's not what we're trying to do in this country. We're not trying to make square pegs fit in round holes, and we're afraid to test evidence because it's not going to fit our narrative. I hope, like, there are some smart people on that jury. Like, I know it. The thing that is so beautiful about juror questions is you just know how smart they are by the questions that they're asking.
they didn't get
There
to
are
any today
smart
because he's not
people on
done, right?
huh?
They're not done with him, so no questions today?
Oh yeah, he was off. We got a couple
Okay. Oh
questions.
god,
We got
I'm
a
excited.
questions. Okay, so you chose not to test that because of like oh no, this is it. Okay, wait. Oh, okay. So if you thought the height thing was a thing, and he's like at that point, Andy says, because like Rick Allen's just a pretty short guy. That's like a pretty distinct. Like if you got the thing back at 5'4", it's like you're good. You got him. So it's strange. So then the next thing that just might like I had to literally this is one of those situations where I had to collect my skull bones off the fucking floor because my head exploded. So we all know about the hairs or the hair, the strand, or the multiple hairs wrapped around Abby's finger, right? So come to learn today, because there had been rumblings that they had sent it off to the lab. Come to learn today that they've decided not to test the hair wrapped around Abby's finger because they've been told that it's probably from Libby's family.
Well,
And
at
and
least
Andy
they were
says,
told that. Well, why
"Ri-
come on, babe. Why are they
what?
gonna test it? They were told. It
Right?
probably belongs to someone in Libby's
Probably
family.
it's probably from the
I mean,
German family.
meh.
Don't test it. Why waste the money? Forget it. Don't worry. Fucking blew my mind, man. Blew my mind. Okay.
Michael says, "Do the thing about Baldwin going back at home and looking." Oh, he did. He did that, Michael.
So at this point, like Andy's kind of just like, like picking away at the shit that they it's like, see, y'all left a bunch of bloody sticks behind, right? It's like that was a mistake, right? You guys probably should have taken the sticks. It's like, nah, that wasn't a mistake. We
He sticks.
we tested the blood. We just we swabbed the blood on the sticks. Could never be DNA on those sticks. Ever. Could
No
never
way.
be any kind of biological material. No skin could have flaked off on those things. No, so like the fact that like whenever law enforcement doesn't just kind of own mistakes, and then he does own mistakes in the very next question. Baldwin says mistakes were made in this investigation. Is that safe to say? He says yes, mistakes were made. Um, and he says you believe that the killer. Wait, I need light. Yeah, my writing was like it was coming fast and furious so bad, like this is one of those ones
I
where
hear you. I got you.
there's not like much time to like jot down. Um, okay, so it's your belief that the killer was just trying to cover the girls with the sticks, right? That they weren't arranged. Objection to the term arranged. Sustained. Yeah, he was like we believe that he was just trying to camouflage. That's the word. So that's what they've landed on. They've decided that they weren't placed there in any kind of form or fashion, but that and they weren't trying to necessarily hide the girls. They were just trying to camouflage them so that from a bit of a distance you couldn't see that they were there.
What about a bunch of leaves and debris, by the way? Like,
So he says you don't believe that they were trying to pose the bodies in any way, like
objection to pose.
the one arm up and like just the way like like he's like no, we don't think they were trying to pose the body. I wish the one like there were two questions I would have liked if it's easy to be a armchair quarterback though.
Right.
I would have liked to have seen Andy ask about the fact when he changed the parking thing, you know like where he would have just kind of pointed out for the jury, well, you've been sitting here
Sitting here.
where typically you wouldn't be allowed to hear all the other witnesses. It sounds like you've changed your story there, Lieutenant. Is that what's happened? You guys in midstream have decided to change your theory on what happened here and where Rick Allen was parked. Is that what's going on in the middle of the case after you heard the testimony?
Bring home your opening notes because I gotta remember if they even said it in their opening
What?
that he was parked at the CPS building.
Oh no, I can't remember. Yeah. Um, and so, he gets into the scene a little bit. So he's like, there's blood on Libby's hands, not on Abby's. He's like, you don't find anything peculiar about that? I was like, not really. Um,
Ay, ay.
he says, so also, like he was like, there was from where the girls were killed, you could hear people from the bridge, right? It's like, what do you mean? He said that you, Holman, you think that Richard Allen heard people from the search party, then killed the girls. He's like, like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm not sure that that's what I said. He's like, you said it. Like you've said it. You think that, and when I just want to be clear, the search party started at like 4:30, 5 o'clock, right? I mean that's a little bit of a problem with Sarah Carbaugh having spotted bloody muddy guy at 3:40, 3:56, right? Like the search hadn't even started, but you're on record saying that, and not on trial. This is all shit that
Right.
he says like like
Pre-trial.
in the world.
Right.
That in your estimation, Allen was there and then he heard the search party, it startled him, and that's when he killed the girls. But that doesn't really work with your timeline, right? As it stands now. So he says, so he talks about the search party and the thing, talks about the Sarah Carbaugh.
Wait,
He's like,
does he ever what does Holman ever say? Does he say, "Yes, I did say that"?
not sure that's what I said. That's what he said.
And they don't impeach him with anything specific or refresh his recollection?
No. I don't think it
Not
was.
sure
I
that
don't know that it was a like. I didn't get the sense it was in a depth,
right.
but like
It was out there.
my head was like swimming at this point. I'm like, holy shit, dude, this is like what what is that? I was like, this is not how I thought. This is not how I thought my Saturday was going to go. Like I did not. I thought it was going to be some boring ass DNA shit in the case that we know that DNA is not a thing. And I was like jumping in the car, and it was Great America time. Like that was it, and then it turned into like my head's exploded on the courtroom wall. I'm scraping brains off and shit. It was crazy. So he says, so the video. He's like, he's like, does it bother you um that you can't see the like the bridge guy that Sarah Carbaugh she says on 300 on the Hoosier Harvest. What's your explanation? Because she says he's walking by town, which means that he has to walk right by Hoosier Harvest, right? I mean, does that like bother you a bit at all? Like, where do you think he like? I mean, like you think that Sarah Carbaugh's credible witness, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, but like he would have had to have passed. She saw him. She claims that she saw him, but like, doesn't he have to pass Hoosier Harvest? Like, did you see him on the video? No. Um, and he says that he says you can't see. He's like in Libby's video, you cannot see bridge guy's mouth move, correct? He says that's correct. He's like, as you sit here, you have no way of knowing that there wasn't some. And he's like, what your theory is that bridge guy then took the girls down the right side of the bridge. He's like, well, I don't know whose theory it is. It's like he's got him rattled on the stand. But you don't know as you sit here today. You have no way to know if there wasn't somebody on the left side of the bridge saying down the hill, do you? He's like, well, I doubt it. I don't, but I doubt it. It's like that, I mean,
I doubt it. I mean, take it to the bank. He
and then
doubts it.
he then like, and if anybody in the chat, if the name Teresa, I think it was Liber, I think that's it. But if y'all are gonna watch Andrea, see if she gets a name. It was a name really late in the cross, and he asked her, "Is like Teresa Liber or Lieber? Did you speak with her?" And then I think he said no. And I was in the middle of I was trying to write that bridge shit down when he asked that
Sleuthie says
question.
Teresa Lieber.
Lieber, thank you. See, I mean, she's like a fucking human dictionary. That one. Thanks, Sleuth. Who is she? Let me know. Like, who is she? Let me know. That was. Do you know? So he flat out asked him because at this point he's kind of. She said, "Check your text, Allie." At
That's
this
where I
point,
think she meant what she just sent me.
at this point, she says, he asks, "Do you know the last time that Libby's phone connected to the tower that it pinged?" And that's what I'm saying. At this point, Baldwin is really trying to quiz Holeman on what he really knows about this investigation.
So Teresa saw a stranger milling around early in the morning on 213.
Oh shit! Early in the morning.
I think that means probably midnight on 214. I
What?
assume, but maybe
Oh,
not.
on the 14th?
Well, she said 213, so she's still texting.
Okay.
Oh, here, let's see. She sent me a whole freaking thing here. Witness observed a man within a few hundred yards of the Monon High Bridge where the girls were abducted that looked like Elvis Fields. Oh, it was 8 a.m. on 213. So
Wow.
someone who's out there planning in advance,
Ah.
lives on the same side of the Monon High Bridge, only 560 yards from the very place where the famous Down the Hill video was taken. Paved road, County Road 625 West. So that's literally when you go all the way to the end of the bridge, what they're calling an access road, unless there's another one. But the one on the map, the one that leads to the Weber house, is literally 625. So she says paved road, County Road 625 West ends almost in front of her home. So she must live near the Webers. Uh, that road turns into a private gravel road that continues towards the Monon High Bridge and services the home of Brad Weber. So yeah, that's what I was saying. Around 8:30 a.m. on the morning of February 13th, 2017, she observed a man on 625 West near her house standing near the mailboxes used by property owners nearby. She has never observed the homeowners walking to their mailboxes because the distance from their homes to the mailboxes. The homeowners of drive their vehicles to drop off and pick up their mail. She's never seen this man before. She was in the passenger side of a truck being driven by her husband, Dave Liebert. The man also observed was standing very close to the passenger side of the Liebert truck as they passed him. She was sitting higher in the truck and had a good view of this man's face as she passed him and noticed the man appeared to be startled and concerned at being seen. She turned to her husband and asked something like,
Is this what Sleuthy sent you in like all of 30 seconds?
"Yeah, yeah."
She's
She
a she's
turned
a an amazing
it's a
human
whole
being.
bulleted thing, so this existed already. She turned to her
That's
husband.
not the point.
I know, she's on point, I know.
Yeah,
She
she is
turned
on.
to her husband and asked something like, quote, "What do you think he's doing?" After passing the man and driving approximately 50 more yards to their driveway, the Lieberts exited the truck. After exiting the truck, she looked in the direction of where the man had been and noticed he was gone. She didn't see him on the road at all. She believes the man had to immediately and intentionally hide after they passed him on the road, which would explain his sudden disappearance. The only reason anyone would be walking down that dead end road would be if they were lost or if they were going to see the Liebert family or the Weber family. She also remembers that the man was wearing a canvas jacket that was nondescript in color, but doesn't remember him wearing a hat. She was later asked to provide a description of the man's face that she observed, and she did so. The sketch of the man that she observed that morning closely resembles Elvis Fields. Even State Trooper Purdy had to admit that the sketch and the photo of him shown to him of Elvis Fields during the deposition resembles one another.
Well, somebody emailed me, and this thing's been out there, and as you can imagine, I have legions of people emailing me, DMing me constantly because I am a shill for the defense, right? So I mean, obviously, I'm
Oh,
the
of
highway, I'm
course.
the super highway to the defense. But in reality, like somebody sent me a video that was posted by this neon whatever a couple of nights ago that is somebody who has the identical vehicle of Richard Allen. This thing was posted on August 9th of 2017, and this vehicle it's pulled all the way up to like the well, maybe not. Like so they show the back of the vehicle and then all of a sudden it cuts to like a vehicle that's I think the exact same vehicle as Rick's. And it's a like a hatchback 26 like it looks to be a 2016 Ford Focus. All you can see is the back and the hatchback. And then it cuts to like two dudes standing at the bridge talking about like how you'd get down and like what or like how he got down and where he went. And it's like the caption of it is like like walking with neon puppet. Thank you, woman doing just the tip. Um and it's like somebody told me that that dude in the video is Elvis Fields. So I don't know. I don't know. This case, man. This case. This case is unbelievable. Those poor girls, man. It's like whatever's going on with this thing, man. Oh my god. I cannot wait to hear these confessions. Like this whole case for the state has now fallen directly on the confessions and whether or not the jurors are going to believe that they weren't coerced and tortured out of him. The entire case is that now. That's it. That is it. This entire they have like an absolute huge steaming pile of shit for a case. Like there's no other way to put it. Like that is objectively. Anybody sitting in that courtroom that's saying anything else is full of shit.
Yeah, I'd
God,
like to see what all the
I
the,
wish
like
this thing was being the world deserves to see this case. This case should have been streamed for the world to see it. Because I don't want to be like, oh, mod is a show for the bullshit. This is a bullshit case, man. They're left with these confessions. The whole case is going to be these confessions,
and
and
there's 2
whether or
other
not,
lawyers in there that I'm sure are screaming the exact same thing. I know we all feel the same way.
thank God, Andrea and Lee are there. Thank God. It's like, oh man, just like because the media, they're fine, but thank God I have two other defense attorneys that are sitting in that room with me that and like I'm too tired because I love Andrea, I love Lee, like I love their content, but I've been too tired to watch any of it. So I don't know if we're jiving about what we're seeing. I have a feeling that we are. I mean, we all have different perceptions of things, but like in terms of what we're hearing and what we're seeing and the evidence, and like we're like, because you hear little things that you're like, oh, yeah, like the bullet in the box is weird. Like, is that something it's a little weird? Like he changed his height on a fishing license. Is that weird? Not really. But when they're cramming it in the context of what their theory is, they make it seem weird. I
Right.
fucking change my like. I swear on my government issued driver's license for up until I was 40, I was 6 feet tall, man. So it's like I just like it's not a weird thing, but when you look at but like those are not the things that you convict somebody of a double homicide on. That's not it. It's not it. And I can't wait to see so it's like they've got this round, this ejected unspent casing with that they just won't they don't want the jurors to see the photographs of the match, and we still have the defense expert coming on to talk about the shit that field is using now, and that she knows nothing about. And she said that I would have to, I'd have to basically take a back seat if this person says that it's not a match because I don't know the science. It's like it's all coming down to the confessions. And I'm here to tell you, and I don't give a shit whether you believe me or not. You can take this to the bank. Allie and I have been trying cases for a long time. If you don't think that prosecutors that have a shit case are trying to extract confessions, and a lot of them out of a defendant in order to get their conviction, you're out of your mind and you're living in a dream world.
Or the cops will just lie or try to, you know, feed someone information so that we're just gonna have to
You're
see.
being way more diplomatic than I am.
I
It's
said
like
cops lie. They
they
don't even
do.
need to extract. They just can lie.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm ready. I'm ready to start hearing them. It's gotta be next week. It's gonna be confession time. Confessions galore.
So yeah, Libby Lee says Andrea tweeted, oh, wait, uh, I hit the wrong button, but whatever, it was frame job alert.
Yeah.
I
Um,
mean, is she a shill for the defense? She's a shill. She's a
she's a
total shill.
shill. They got her on the payroll now. She
Got her
didn't
on the
even tell me.
payroll.
I didn't know we were
She's a
coworkers
consultant.
now. I didn't know. I wonder if they
People
put her.
still think you were a consultant at some point.
Some pimp wrote today that I'm not being paid by the defense on Twitter. And he's like a dude that's in here occasionally. Like he reminds me of Adam Malone.
He says you are or you're not.
no, he says that he's like, be careful. Mata's not being paid by the defense. He's being paid. He's like a DL media. He's like some media companies, some media is paying him. Have those checks come in, babe? Have you been
Yeah,
checking the mail?
modified sound, is that the media
Yeah,
company paying
but
you?
no, and then I weaseled my way in with Kathy, with the family, that like
Oh,
that, but I'm like, that's how it all happened. I mean, it tracks
they
totally.
reached you, so.
All right, so let me wrap this up because I want to hit the road. Okay,
Yes,
so
me too.
so he says, uh, s- and there's one thing that I forgot to add that I did not write in my notes, but that was seared in my mind is that when Baldwin was talking about whether or not they tried to have the height of bridge guy analyzed by somebody who could do it. that it came out that Holeman was not aware of what Richard Allen's height is. I just want that to resonate with you.
Wait, who was not aware?
Holeman, the lead investigator, was not
Oh,
aware of the suspect's height. The
I
guy
mean,
who's
that
sitting in
makes
court.
sense.
I just want that to rattle around in your brain a little bit. Um, so again, because I went on a bit of a rant there, I apologize. So the last time that Libby's phone connected to the tower, he's like, I can't really remember. He refreshes his recollection, goes back to his DEP on May of this year. Oh no, yeah, May 23rd. Says, yeah, so it's like Libby's phone last pinged on a tower at 5:47.
All right, I gotta go deal with the girls and start getting ready. I'm gonna be watching from my phone, but,
Okay.
uh, thanks everybody. Thanks for being here. Love you, babe.
Can't wait to
I'm
hug
gonna
and kiss
note
you in a few
there's
hours.
2,446 people here. I haven't checked how many likes. Please, 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 convert those into likes. Hopefully you're enjoying the content, and babe, I'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Love you.
Yeah. Okay, I love you, babe. Okay, all right. So he says that Andy then asks the question after the last phone ping at 5:47. He says, you have no way to rule out the possibility that Libby's phone left that scene and was brought back at 4:30 in the morning, do you? And he's like, we don't believe that that's what happened. So but that's not a rebuttal. That's not a rebuttal. He says, and then he asked a question which was interesting. He's like, you never extracted the information from Kelsey German's phone, did you? And he says, we did not. And he says, was that a mistake? Just to help with timelines and see who was communicating, and you don't think you should have done that? And he says, no, I don't think we should. Um, he says he said you did learn within the past few months. He said you did in fact learn with the rest of us in the last few months that phone connected to the tower at 4:33 a.m. Correct? And Holman says, yeah, we learned that. And he says, well, um, and then McClellan pops in. So that was it. Like he was done. And then McClellan stands up and he's like, so, like he says, okay, so there's the 213 video. He's like, I just want to be sure that you're clear on the timeline here to his witness. He says 213, the video of Bridge Guy, right? And then you got 3:56 PM is when Sarah Carbaugh sees Bloody Muddy Guy, right? Because Baldwin misstated some evidence during his cross. He says, yeah, that's correct. He says, then you saw the video, right? From Libby's phone. He says, yeah, I've seen it. He's like, you believe that the voice is Bridge Guy, right? Says, yes. He says, there's no evidence of another person being out there. He says, correct. And he says that Betsy Blair and Sarah Carbaugh both state that the person that they saw is Bridge Guy, correct? He says, yes. And then at 5:47, that's the last time that, or he says 5:44, but I thought like everybody kind of screws up the dates in there, like on the stand. So I'm always writing different days. So I thought that Nick said 5:44 p.m. That's the last time that Libby's phone pinged off the tower. And he says, yes. And he says, he says, there's no indication at all that a car took the girls away from that scene, right? That the phone moved again, right? After 2:32, right? And Holman says, absolutely not. Um, and then he says, and then he asks him, he goes back to the beginning. He says about the lies. He's like, it's not a lie that other people saw him, right? Like, and that's how he asked the question, meaning that there were other witnesses that saw a bridge guy. He says, well, yeah, that's true. So then on recross, um, Andy says, is it possible that Richard Allen was out there earlier, like when he said, and saw three different girls? Because remember, there were actually four girls with Rayleigh and Brianne Wilbur. And he says, no, I don't think so. And then that was it. It was a thing, y'all. It was a thing. It was a thing. It was quite a day. So then there were a couple of jury questions, couple few. So is there a way to get the girls to the other side uh other than crossing the bridge? So like there was one thing that I was so behind in notes that came up where Andy had asked during his cross, where he said we saw the video, right? We saw the picture of Abby at 207, right? And you'll agree with me, you don't see anybody behind her in that picture. Isn't that true? And Holman says, yeah, that does appear to be true. He's like, so you don't know, you have no way to know. And and in the video, that like the guy doesn't sound like he's out of breath, right? Like he was hustling to get to the girls. Like you don't hear any heavy breathing or anything like, right? He's like, so you can't say that in that 7 minutes that somebody crossed all the way from past Abby and then got to that side of the bridge. You can't say that, can you? Somebody else entirely. And he's like, I don't believe that's what happened, but so I just wanted to make sure I threw that in there. It was like a little interesting kind of theory. So one of the jurors asks, "Is there a way to get to the other side, to get the girls, to get to the girls other than crossing the bridge?" And he said, "I think so. I think you can come up under the bridge." So the jurors are already thinking. They're thinking. They've is there other ways up there? Like, why does it all have to be the bridge? Then they say Abby is in the middle of the bridge. Bridge guy started out. Um, oh, this is actually where it happened during the juror question when Andy asked that question. So, like, Abby's in the middle of the bridge. Bridge guy started out on the other end, um, near the trails, and by the end, that Libby, we know that Libby's at the end of the bridge. This is actually where Andy says it. Like based on the 207 photograph and the video starting at 213, you have no way to know whether or not somebody passed Abby by and came and got on, behind the girls. Like, I mean, you have no way to know that. Zero way to know that. Like they didn't, maybe just somebody was walking by, didn't say shit. Like wasn't, I mean, you have no way to know it. So, then here's the next question. It was, is it preposterous to think that a man oh no, this is Andy. He says, is it preposterous to think that a man walked past the girls uh and got past them? And he said, I guess it's possible. And then they said, oh, and then here was the other question. Do you know where Derek German was when he was yelling for the girls? Which was an interesting question, where he was out looking for them at whatever, 3:15, 3:30, 3:35. And he says, oh, yeah, he was down. He was by the bridge, Freedom Bridge. He was down in the trails. He walked to the high bridge, and that whole time he said he was yelling. So that was it, y'all. It was a big day. It was a big day. Big day for the defense. Let's tell you that right now. So you guys, I'm gonna bounce. I'm gonna give some shout outs real quick. Well, let me try to answer questions. Osbrook, I forgot what did the PCA say about the match subjectively, right? Like I can't remember the exact language either, but I remember that they were very, very careful to say that it was the subjective opinion of the examiner. And I can't remember if they said it was a match, but I think it did. But don't quote me on it. Bowie girl, is there no more evidence other than the so-called confessions? I don't think so. I don't think so. Like he would have said it in his opening. If you're listening to anybody that's telling you that the state's attorney that's the lead in the case, lead counsel, the lead state's attorney is going to give his opening statement and not bring up powerful evidence so as to set the stage and get the jury with him right away. That's not how this works. That's it. We are hearing there is no more evidence. All that talk about them having other evidence does not exist. Okay, so no DNA from the car. No, after getting him, that's amazing, isn't it? Muddy and bloody guy gets into his car, and I don't give a shit how many years it is. It is near impossible to get every speck of blood that is completely untraceable. Like I was like, it's so funny you asked that question, because I was actually thinking about this. I'm like, we've had cases where law enforcement has gone and they've found where our client was accused of brutal knife slaying homicides. Theoretically, there would be a ton of blood. There was a ton of blood at the scene. That means that there was probably a lot of blood on the perpetrator, and that our client had bought new floor pads or floor mats for his vehicle, like about a month after the crimes. Like, I mean, did they investigate anything like that? Did they see if Rick went and bought new floor mats for the Ford Focus at any point? Might have been something to do. Um, Post punk mama, wait, are they taking the bullet back? I'm behind and confused. No, they're not taking the bullet back, but what they were trying to do was cover up some things that were said about the strength of that evidence at different times, that they know that the defense, they were trying to get in front of it so that, and that's not unusual. It's like you try to front things that are bad facts for you, no matter which side you're on. So this very much seemed to be one of those situations wherein McClellan was trying to get in front of the fact that Holeman was overselling the strength of that evidence prior to the trial starting. Why is jury in the stand attempting to soften the blow? I mean, I think I just explained that, Joanna. I mean, they're trying to get in front of it. But if they found no evidence in the car, what difference does it make? I'm not sure if I understand that one. That was probably like, it would have made more sense in the context of when I was talking about it. Crypto tax, totally understand if B Money doesn't know, can't reveal. Do we know why RA's daughter isn't at the trial? Seems like they have a good relationship. I don't know, honestly. I know that they have a relatively young new child, like pretty young. So Susan, oh my God, after implying to the jury yesterday it was an admission, now we have context. Okay, true. Thomas Scott, I have a legitimate question about Holeman. It's going to sound like I'm clowning. You have watched Holeman. Does he appear in person like he is, as he is inappropriate as he sounds? No, I mean, he looks like a typical cop. He's got the buzz cut thing. He's got the whole thing going. A big burly guy. I mean, like, the real question I have, like, based on the evidence that I've seen thus far, and if you, like, just as an exercise in your minds, I want you to strip away these confessions that are upcoming, and I want you to look objectively at the evidence that we've been presented, that you've been hearing through various creators that are in the courtroom, and we've been trying to give you every single detail that we can. I mean, there's obviously going to be gaps. We're human beings trying to write as fast as we can and still trying to observe a little bit what's going on in the courtroom, which is my biggest beef, that I can't do it, because I have to look down so much to write. But I want you to just think about it. Like, if you strip those things away, is this a case that you're putting somebody away on this crime, on these crimes? And just ask yourself that. It's like it's this whole thing that he was out there, the mere presence thing. He's bridge guy. He has to be bridge guy. He's out there. I don't know that that's true. Like, these witnesses are all over the place. I don't know. I don't see any way that a jury can override reasonable doubt with the information coming out each day. I agree. But it's like I have to hear the confessions. I have to. I have to hear them. I have to hear them. I want to see what he was written. Like, I have to. Um, R&M Productions. Do you think RA will take the stand? I know that was to Ange, but I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, and like I have a very like I don't know what other creators are saying about the perception of like what they're seeing from Rick. I don't see him acting strange at all. I don't see him staring and glaring at people. But like I keep hearing people saying that people are saying that he's doing that shit and he's not. Like he looks over trying to look at Kathy all the time. He's trying to look at his wife and his mom, who are always in the same two seats, always. And he tries to look at them all the time. Like he stood up today after um I think it was after we took a little break. He stood up and he just kind of stretched and he looked over to Kathy and he rolled his eyes and like shook his head. Like it was after a bunch of the Holeman shit was coming out. Like it was a very, very interesting look from a guy who's like sitting there with his entire life at stake. It was telling to me, and not in a way that like he's sitting there as a guilty guy. Jessica Pickle, $5. Appreciate you. Thank you for keeping us updated on a Saturday. I appreciate you appreciating us. We do appreciate that very, very much. Why couldn't they show the video today? I don't think that it was like teed up. Like the whole tech thing is not, they got a big screen in there, but they need a little time to get things set up. But we're definitely going to hear it next week. Is Holman the one who did the press conference? No, that's Carter, Doug Carter. That's not to say that Holman's ever I don't know if he's ever done one. It's typically Doug Carter's the guy. In my opinion, he looks and sounds like Bridge Guy from the beginning. Everyone called me nuts, but this case is nuts. This case, it's definitely nuts. Bob, I hear the words Holman said, but what was his tone? What were his mannerisms? I mean, he never got like defensive. I mean, he just kind of sat there and took it. You know what I mean? Afton, thank you very much. Oh, family hugs 5 times. Appreciate you. Always. I always do. The tea is fire. This tea is fire. Thanks, Marissa. I appreciate that. I appreciate the generosity as well. Very much. Post Punk Mama, $5 holla. Appreciate you. Please let Kathy know how much we love and support her and Rick. And we hope that Janice heals. Thanks. I will. I'll pass it on. Mudbug, $5 super. Appreciate you, Mudbug. You're awesome. Carbonated nonsense. Is it visibly noticeable to the jury how uniquely short Richard Allen is? Absolutely. Like they see him, he's stand. Like we all have to stand every time the jury comes in the room. And like what they've done is they have Baldwin, who's probably 6'2", standing by, standing by Rick all the time, just so you can see the difference in heights. It was a good question. Thank you for that $5 holla. Appreciate you. Pam, thank you for all your hard work. Was Abby's face clearly visible in the video that you saw of the girls on the bridge? God, can't like, dude, it's like they show it one time and you're trying to see so many things. It's like, I don't want to give an answer that's like, I I think in the enhanced one, like and I do not know if there are two enhanced videos or if they just showed a portion of it. Because the day that the dude, the foundational witness came on to talk about the guy who did the enhancements to the video, they showed a different video than what they showed, where it was like all of a sudden now you can see where the camera is facing down at the ground. Now it's like up. Like, I don't know how they did it. I don't know if it's a separate video. I don't know. Like, I just wish we could see the goddamn videos a bunch of times. It's like, why does everything have to be hidden? Why can't the jurors just see these videos as much as they want? We're trying to figure out the truth here. I don't get it. So I don't know. I don't know. Like, I can't say one way or another. I feel like, yeah, like I feel like you could, like, maybe not her head, but you could see her clearly like kind of running towards her. I can't remember if it caught it has to catch her face because you could definitely see the bridge dude's like closer. He looks closer. But I don't know if that's the same video that they just like somehow manipulated it to make it seem like everything's close. I don't know. It's like they just don't show it enough. And you're trying to look at so many things in 43 seconds. It's like it's very challenging. $5 super from CBC. Appreciate you so much. Jessica Pickle, if Rick Allen is found not guilty, does anyone really think the Delphi police will really look for the actual murders? I hope so. I sure hope so. I really do. Like that family deserves that. Like I mean, if he's acquitted and they're gonna take the position as the guilty guy got off, that's bullshit. The family deserves better than that. That better not be what happens. $10 holla, and thank you for that $5 holla, Jessica. Lisa Shelton, $10 holla. What do you think the family thinks? I don't know. I don't know. Like Libby's grandpa watches my stuff. He's like he always comes up and talks to me. So I guess he doesn't think I'm a shill for the defense, or maybe he does. He's always very friendly to me. He's like, I watched your live, So I don't know what the family thinks. I would love to have sit down and talk with them. I don't have a dog in the hunt. I really don't. I'm trying to objectively cover this case and just tell y'all what I think and I see. Do I have a defense lens? Of course, I'm a defense lawyer. I can't be what I'm not. I am a defense attorney. I did it for a long time. It's how I think. All right. So, do you think that they believe he's guilty? I think that they want to believe that law enforcement got the right guy. I mean, like families always do. They put all their trust into law enforcement and prosecutors because they tell them, we got him. We did it. We did it. They want to have faith. They want to believe that he's the guy. They need to. They need to feel that. I mean, it's like I don't know what they're thinking in there as they watch that trial. Bear down, Bob. Enjoy your family. See you Monday. Yep. New sub here. Thank you very much. Have they given an estimate on how long that they have not updated? But I'm here to tell you the state's case is close to ending. Like I think it's going to be early next week. We're going to get whoever this DNA person is and whatever they're testifying about, and then it's confession time. Like I don't know who else they're going to put on. Like everything's in there. So it's gonna be quick. Bear down. Big time. Can't wait for tomorrow. It's been they had the bye week, so which actually was good timing for me because I've been like exhausted. So I was trying to I had a Sunday to unwind. But I really didn't because I was traveling. Indy Cindy, lawsuits, they put on shit. Uh They put shit on food with old water to make them drink from the toilet, break iPads so he can't communicate, withdraw meds, and involuntarily medicate him. Yeah, I mean shit's legit. Is Carter going to be a witness? Don't know. I don't know. How many confessions were recorded? Don't know. Appreciate the $5 hour. We're about to find out, though. We're about to find out. Jane, welcome. We love you. Love having you. Aw, K-Dog, thank you for becoming a member. Appreciate both of you. Aw, family hugs. Hoosier, $2 holla. Where's the best place to eat in Delphi? I have to say it's the Stone. I don't know if it's the Stone Cafe or Stone Bakery. It's great. Got great food. That's like my number one spot. I love it. It's so good. All the food in Delphi is great. Such a great community. All these people are just incredibly nice. All of them. Like every single person that I've met has been like all the deputies that are working the courthouse are all super nice people. It's a very nice community filled with very nice people, and it's like, and I think that the people that have invaded their home, namely me and everybody else, I try to always be incredibly respectful. I tip well. I do all the things to know that I appreciate them having us here and treating us so kindly. So, so Daniel, appreciate the $5. Thank you for your excellent coverage, the lawyer's perspective. Thank you. I appreciate that. Wendy, Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you very much, Wendy. We appreciate the support very, very much. Roxanne, how are the families reacting? Content or disgusted? Like, to be honest with you, like I honestly, like, that's not my thing. Like, I'm not sitting there like looking, like, I'm not a reporter, a traditional journalist. I have a different thing that I'm doing. I'm not trying to look at the family like when there's like I wouldn't even make I wouldn't disrespect the family by looking over to them when they're showing horrible pictures of their daughters. Like, it's none of my goddamn business. I don't want to report, you know, the most horrible moments in their lives and how they're reacting to it. So that's just me. I can tell you how Kathy reacts because I sit right next to her, and Kathy's a mess. She's going through an unbelievable life event that you can't even begin to imagine what enduring, like, all around. I keep trying to tell people, like, please try to understand that Kathy and Rick's mom and, like, they're all victims in this, like, very different types of victims, but please understand, Kathy's life was shattered. Like, she was a part of the fabric of that community. She worked at a vet's office. She's like the sweetest woman ever, and her life was shattered in the blink of an eye. She had to move out of town. It's like, I just ask people to be cognizant of that, to understand that these cases shatter everyone involved, just destroy their lives. Um, Okay, Travis, why isn't the defense using the video? It's been admitted. Which one, T? I don't know what you're talking about. Are you talking about the interrogation? That's coming next week if you relate to the party, if that's what you're talking about. Lana, thank you for the $10. Dear Bob, thanks for being so passionate and giving us the realness and doing it raw. I can't fake it, like I am who I am. It's like I know sometimes I'm not as polished, but I don't really give a shit. I mean, either you like me or you hate me, or I'm somewhere in between. I see the comments, I rub people wrong sometimes, but too bad. Biggest moment of the trial so far, biggest blunders. I thought today was the biggest moment of the trial so far. The blunders, it's like, obviously there's certain things that are missed, um, by both sides in terms of things that you'd like to see asked. But I mean, that's going to happen in any trial. Like, we're all humans. We're attorneys that are trying these cases are all doing their very best to try to put on the best case possible. There's just no way that that you're going to be able to ask everything that you want to ask. There's always going to be shit. There has never been a cross examination for Allison or I where we didn't walk out of the courtroom like, God damn it, I forgot to ask that. I can't believe it. Is that going to blow the case? I mean, it's hard. So, in terms of like blunders, it's really been I think Nick McClelland, in terms of what he has done a phenomenal job of putting his case on. Like just me being critical of the strength of their case does not mean that I don't like. Nick McClelland knows his case. Nick McClelland is a good trial lawyer. Period. Like, he really is. Like, he's going in there, like, he has what he has. Like, his case is what it is. He has what the cops brought him, and he's going in there and he's fucking trying as hard as he can. I think Nick believes that Rick's the guy. I don't get the sense that Nick's in there trying to convict an innocent man. I think that Nick in his heart believes that he's doing it. At least I want to think that. But and Brad and Andy are doing a great job. And so is Jennifer. I never want to forget her. She's the massive part of that defense team. I mean, all three of them are doing a phenomenal job. I think they're putting on an excellent trial. This is what you expect. It's a goddamn shame that the world's not seeing it. Lisa Shelton, thank you for becoming a member. Oh man, my brother. I love you, J-Bo. Thank you so much, man. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, man. I miss you so much and I appreciate you. As soon as I'm done with this, man, we're hanging, man. You know what I mean? It's long overdue. I miss you. Thank you, brother. Rachel, thank you for becoming a new member. Oh, family hug. Member for 1 month. Thank you, thank you. How'd you it was as simple as putting new batteries in the remote. Good memory, Emmy. She's talking about the TV behind us. We couldn't figure out how to turn it off. I am old. You guys know how I am with that tech. Freedom through faith. 199, $2 holla. How did they find Delphi? Uh, did he go to the police? Who? Give me more before I end because I'm about to. How did they find Delphi? Did he go to the police? Dang it, I don't know what you're asking, Freedom. Maybe somebody can clarify in there. You don't have to super it. Just put it in the chat real quick. Mag, love you. You are the Bob Father for a reason. We respect you 100. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your time and your knowledge. I appreciate you, Meg, so much for all that you do, all your generosity, all your modding. All right, you guys have been amazing. We had a great, great crowd in here. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Love us or hate us. We hope that you respect the fact that we're trying to give you the truth. I'm just trying to relay what I hear in there. Of course, if I'm hearing it, and it looks like it was a good day for the defense, I'm going to say it, and I just felt like it was a good day for the defense. I think anybody in that courtroom, if they're being intellectually honest, is going to be saying the same thing. It was not a great day for the state in there, and if Richard Allen is the guy, they're going to have to go back and they're going to have to regroup and they're going to have to come back strong. But again, like I've said, to me, what this case is going to boil down to in the eyes of that jury is going to be these confessions. Because where it sits right now, if this were to go to the jury, I can't see any way possible they're coming back with a conviction if it were to end today. But it's not. There's a bunch of confessions going out there, and we're going to hear them and we're going to read them. And I think that's where this thing's going to land. And, we're also going to hear about how Alan was treated. So, hey, what's up, Shans? Love you, girl. I miss you guys both so much. So much. All right, let me see if I can get that last question. Juries, interesting. Yeah, yeah, that was interesting, but it's like I think like you could think of that a couple of ways. Are they thinking about it like with the concept that like the killer is does hear something? So it's not the search party, it's Derek German searching, and that's what the killer hears and then kills the girls real quick. Like I think that that's where that jury question is going more than anything else. It's interesting. Um All right, that's it. I'm calling it, y'all. You guys rock. Please, if you're new to the channel, I hope you dug it. Like I said, I just try to come with just facts, straight dope. It's what I do. And I'm a passionate guy. So if that's not your style, thanks for checking in today. If I am your style, hopefully you'll hang with Ali and I a bunch in the future. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe. Hit that like on the button. Hit that button on the way out. That like. It's free. It's free to do. It's easy to do, and then share, subscribe it, get us out to the algo. We really appreciate it. We've grown leaps and bounds in the past week, so we've been so appreciative. I think we broke past 27,000 yesterday, so we're super excited about that. We love this community that we've built with my brother Jay. Sadly, had to go back into the workforce because he's got mouths to feed and medical bills to pay and all the real world shit that we have to deal with. I'm gonna drag him back here someday, soon, hopefully. But you guys are amazing. My mods, thank you so much for being at the ready at a moment's notice, because I know I gave you all no time to jump in here. You guys are the best in the business. You guys, you mods out there, you're why this community is so great. You guys make sure that this is a safe place for people to come with all opinions. Like, and this is not some kind of like this isn't an echo chamber. Like Allie and I are lawyers. We argue for a living. You're allowed to have whatever opinion you want to have. And I hope that you get that respect in here. If you think Alan's guilty, then I hope that you're able to air your opinions in our chat without getting, berated and bullied, because we don't want that here. I mean, we want a real open dialogue, because that's what makes it great to be a human, is to be able to discuss and debate intelligently things. So, all right, you guys, you rock. I love you. Thank you for everybody that hung. And I will see y'all Monday, because if you guys don't come, you know what it means. I'm just an old man talking a whole bunch of shit.